Okay, we are live. Hello, wealthy family. So while I'm waiting for people to come in, I just finished my last session of the day. It was an in-person chakra balancing session. I'm feeling so like revitalized, so invigorated, and I was just sitting here chilling, unwinding, grounding myself, and I was like, I need to tell my birth story. So here we are. Here we are. We are going to share some details. I'm not going to wait too long for too many people. I have sat down to do this video so many times. Like I have, I am now, as you see, I have a Valentine's Day baby. So I'm a year and 2 months, February. Yeah. So I'm 14 months postpartum. And I've been sitting down with the intention of doing this video for so very long, for like since he was 3 months old. Okay. But because it was unexpected, I didn't really want to share too much. Um, and it wasn't until recent that I told my story to someone, and they were like, "Girl, you need to tell that to people." So that was just a confirmation, and my spirit telling me, "Come on." And baby is taking a nap, so we going depending on his sleep cycle. That depends how long this video is gonna be. Okay, so um, this baby that was born in 2022, that is my fourth biological child. Um, my firstborn was born in 2002, a couple days after my 17th birthday. So I have a 21-year-old, then I have a 19-year-old, and I have a 17-year-old, and then my 1-year-old. And I have two bonus children. One is 23 and one is 15. Both lived with us, raised them, and everything. So, well, all our children. So we were almost done. We were almost done. And for the longest, I wanted to have another baby. So my husband, having kids as a teenager, unstable, not really in a home life environment. I wanted to have another baby, have another experience, something different from like 2013. Okay. And it was just one excuse after another. It was never the right time. Our money wasn't right. And then my husband was like, no, because full transparency, my bonus son, my 15-year-old, he is autistic, nonverbal. My husband has had him since he was 1 year old on his own. And that was difficult. When I came in the picture when he was 3, he was having really bad seizures. Diet wasn't the best. Of course, no communication, but he would scream. It was hard. So the fear of that happening again always lingered in my husband's heart and in my heart. Full transparency. I'm going to be vulnerable. So it was always a little hesitant to whether or not we wanted to have another. So in 2019, I was like, we're doing good. We're doing better financially. I want to have another. He was like, if we hit 6 figures, maybe. 2018, actually, that happened. 2017, 2018. In 2019, right before the pandemic hit, we were doing pretty good. Things were on the upswing. And then in 2020, pandemic hit. I stopped working in my financial business. And I was like, okay, I don't know which way we're going to turn now. But my husband started doing something different in another field. And I was like, you know what? I want us to get a little bit of guidance. So I went to my spiritual guru, right? My spiritual leader, my spiritual mother, Ecliptic Spiritualist, Ronita. She's on YouTube, Ecliptic Spiritualist 7. And I asked to get a reading, couples reading. And I had never mentioned to her before that I wanted another one. And she did the couples reading. She was like, by the way, there's another soul that wants to come through. And I looked at my husband like, hey, this is confirmation, right? We had went to Jamaica a couple years back, and someone was reading his feet, and they told him, hey, you have some more souls in you, right? So it was always there in the back of our minds. We just weren't sure. So I was like, well, there's another soul that wants to come through, but if our money isn't right, we're not going to do it. And it was always, if we hit six figures. So finally, in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, that's what we did. Hit six figures. So I was like, listen, we got to talk. We started talking about it more and more and more. We decided, okay, if we do this, we want to have a Pisces, because my husband is March 1st. I'm February 28th. We're both Pisces. Our son, the 15-year-old, he's a Pisces, and my 21-year-old, he's a Pisces. So I was like, listen, we got to have another Pisces baby. Let's go. So that shrinks down our time. And then, of course, women, we only ovulate for a certain amount of time. So it shrunk it down some more. So we went from having a whole year to try, to 30 days to try, to 4 days to try, right? So I'm like, all right, we're going to shoot for this baby. Let's go. So we made the decision. We're going to have the baby. My first round ovulation comes around, and my cycle is a couple days late. And I'm like, crap, this is, I'm not crap, but yes, this is it. Going to be pregnant. And then cycle came, and I was very sad and upset, but I was like, okay, whatever, we can try again in the summer. Right. So, well, not the summer, in the next month. And he was like, no, that's going to put us close to an Aries. I said, no, it'll be a Pisces. Let's go. So now we're waiting for ovulation time to come around. Well, not waiting, but planning for ovulation time to come around. And because we're going to be conscious about this. And in the new field I told you my husband took up, he got a contract offer to go to Chicago. And it was during my ovulation time. And I was like, hell nah. So he was like, listen, I'm not going to pass up all this money because of whatever. So I said, fine, we're going to take a road trip. So I went with hubby to Chicago, and it was a Gemini full moon. It was a lot of energy going on. See, the cycle, the time frame before, it was eclipse season. And that's why it was a play with me, like, oh yeah, you are pregnant, but no, you're not. Here's your cycle. Because the eclipse, that shadow energy is kind of dark and heavy. It mixes, causes confusion. So I'm kind of glad I didn't get pregnant during that time. So it was a Gemini full moon when we went and took the Gemini, the road trip to Chicago for him to take his new contract. And I did a manifestation 3x33. I put a video of that manifestation technique on my YouTube channel, but basically you write a phrase 33 times, 3 days in a row. So I did that for my baby, right? This was a plan. This, like I said, was planned. It was manifested during that weekend. And I swear I know the session that happened that I got pregnant. Like, I swear I felt it. But we went home 3 weeks later, take a test, positive. Perfect. Okay, good. So now we're elated. Hubby flies home the next month. When I'm 6 weeks, we tell the children. But that's like, I don't want to tell anyone else. So I didn't tell anyone. My children knew, but that was it. So I decided I wanted to do a home birth, a home water birth. And I found midwives because my other 3 children I've given birth to before, they were all birthed by midwives in a hospital, but all midwives. So I was like, I want a midwife. So I found one here in Lake, where I live. And it was beautiful, beautiful experience. Meeting her. The first one that I vetted, like, she was old and miserable. It was an old white lady. Now, where I live, there's a lot of white people. So we're filling in more now, right? My people coming through Central Florida. But the first one, old white miserable lady, just scared of COVID. Because mind you, now this is 2021. So me, I never gave COVID my energy. I never wore a mask. Like, I have video of me in the airport, like, right? I'm not one of those rambunctious people, but if I don't have to, I'm not going to. I'm like, let me see how bad you're going to enforce it. So anyway, she was miserable. I was like, I don't want to go to her. So the next ones that I found, they were beautiful. And we started doing the care. They were like, listen, you're a pro at this. You're good. At the time, I was 36. I was 36 when I got pregnant. And when I had the baby, no, 37. I'm sorry. 37, right? Because I just turned 38. Yeah, I just turned 38 in 2023. So I was 37 in 2022 when I was pregnant. No issues. I was fine, like the whole pregnancy. I went hiking. I went to Sedona. Y'all saw those videos. I flew to Pennsylvania many times. Like I was active. I was on. My last trip after my baby shower, we went to Houston because I did a quantum healing session with the past, along with the past life regression, and I booked it for Houston. And we went to Houston, New Orleans. Came back home. We took all the children. It was a road trip. Came back home, and because we had all the children with us, our hotel rooms, they had a little partition wall, extra bed, but it wasn't like a whole full bedroom, so there was no nookie going on. So very in tune with her sexual appetite and her sensualities. Me, when we got home, I was like, "Hubby, we got to get the round in." So, I started nesting. I was like, we got to get his bassinet together and wash all his clothes and get everything going. So I started doing that. But we were very active as well. I'm trying to keep it PG. So about maybe 5 days later, or so, maybe 3 days later. No, yeah, 3 days from when we got home, or maybe it was 2 days. Anyway, a couple of days because we had to return the car. I noticed I was leaking, but I just thought, ladies, when your man leaves his juices inside of you, sometimes they flow freely. So I figured it was that. But I noticed it kept coming, and I was like, okay, if I go to the if I go to the grocery store, and I went to the grocery store, and I was like, if I run through a lot more, I'll call and I'll check and I'll see. So I went to the grocery store, did the last round of grocery shopping, and I was going through pads, and I was like, okay, this is an issue, right? It's more than just my man juice. I need to go figure out what's going on. So I went to my midwives, and they swabbed, and they're like, well, it's not showing up as amniotic fluid. But if it's been longer than 24 hours, it may not register. So go to the hospital if anything changes. They're like, if you spike a temperature, let us know. So I went, got a thermometer, whatever. I was fine the rest of that day, but I just stayed off my feet, kept my feet up. But the next day after that, I had a friend come in and she was cooking for us, and I just kept leaking. So I was like, okay, crap. I was like, I think my water broke early because baby wasn't due until March 14th. He was supposed to be a pie baby. So now it is February 2nd. So I go to the hospital, and they're like, yep, it's your water. I said, okay, so let me know what I need to go home and go do. They're like, no, you can't go home. Like, bitch, what's wrong with you? You have to stay here. I was like, oh, crap. So they said I was 32 weeks and change. I would be 33 weeks, or I was 33 weeks and change, and I would be 34 weeks in a couple of days. So they wanted to induce me then, have him born at 34 weeks. He'd have to be in the NICU for like a week. And whatever. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So, by the way, my intake doctor, he was black OBGYN, and very freaking Democrat, very freaking miserable. So the reason why I mentioned my age is because my midwives, everything was fine. Because I had to go to the hospital, my midwives did not have any authority there because I was only 33 weeks. They didn't have authority till I was 35 weeks. So because I was 33 weeks, they could not come in. They didn't have any voice, nothing. So now I'm thrust into dealing with new people that I didn't want to deal with at all. So I'm mad as hell. And they're like, oh, it's a second. Like they could induce me on the 7th, they were saying. It was a couple of days and I would have been 34 weeks. And I was like, nah, I'd rather not do that. And the black doctor was like, well, you're a mature birthing person. I was like, what the fuck is that? A mature birthing person? He's like, yeah, you're a mature birthing person and you don't have your vaccines up to date and you can't this and you can't that and you should do that. I was like, oh my God. So instantly I felt so icky. It was such a shame. This black man, like, really, this is who you are? He was up from the north part of Florida, like just miserable. But the hospital has rotating OBGYNs. So he was like, I'm leaving. I'm going on vacation. Actually, normally I would be here longer, but I'm leaving. So I won't see you because you'll be induced. They're going to induce you on the 7th. I won't be back till the 8th or some shit like that, whatever it was, or something. I was like, okay, cool. So I got in and I was like, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to do this. I do that. They said, fine. I spoke to a midwife that came through. She just came and introduced herself, but she was like, I can't do anything because you're not at 35 weeks. I said, I've been working with midwives my whole like time. I want to work with you at least. She's like, no, you're not 35 weeks. I said, that's when I found out that my midwives also couldn't come in. So there was no privileges for any midwives at all. I had to deal with OBGYN doctors and nurses, whatever. So I was like, okay, cool, fine, no biggie. They're like, well, let's do a sonogram, see how much water you have. Are you this or that? So they did the sonogram, and I was okay. And they wanted to hook me up to the IVs, like keep me on a continuous IV and do an amniotic and flush to pump me with all the stuff. And I was like, nah, I'd rather not. I'd rather not do that. So I said, if I keep drinking my water and I'm showing that I'm okay, like, I'll take a round of antibiotics, because now the barrier that's keeping my little one safe and secure now has a poke in it. And they were like, fine. There's like, you have to be on bed rest. They don't want me to do anything. I said, I can't do that. I cannot do that. So I kept drinking my water here. Eternal is what I chugged. I chugged this shit. There's the gallons of it, and I kept that in my hotel room. My kids cooked for me. My husband cooked for me. I told you the day I got admitted, I had a friend come in. She's a personal chef. So she came in and she was just like, hey, I'm in town, let's cook. So that worked out because she cooked a whole bunch of food. She brought me the most delicious fucking salmon. Oh my God, it was so good. So she did that and she kind of straightened up, and then she left after a couple of days. But yeah, I was just like, I'm gonna thug this shit out. I was like, do I have to get induced? They said no. I said, all right, I've been avoiding things my whole pregnancy. I don't want to get induced. So they said, because I could go into labor at any time. His lungs are not fully developed because I was 34 weeks now, and they wanted to give me steroids for his lungs. I said, fine. So they gave me the steroids. That shit hurt. That's the only thing that I took. I accepted. So after that, now we're going through rotation. I'm fine. They don't have me hooked up to the IV. I did one round of antibiotics, and that was it. I refused everything for the baby. I let them know I wanted to keep his placenta. I told them I have the container here ready to go. I don't want people to keep coming in and checking me. I'll keep the monitoring on to see my contractions, things of that nature. So fast forward, right? I asserted all that. I never wore a mask. I never let them do me the swab for STDs or gonorrhea or any. I was like, no, I don't want any of that. And I didn't stay hooked up to their IV. I just kept drinking the natural alkaline water. I ate food from home. My husband was there every single day. My children came, like, it was held down. So I was very thankful for that. So fast forward now to like Thursday or Friday. Here's the asshole doctor again. He's like, oh, you're still sitting here. How are you still sitting here when you were supposed to be induced? I was supposed to come back from vacation and you were supposed to be gone. I was like, yeah, well, about that. I wanted to sit, and there was nothing they could do to force me. You can't force to induce me. So I'm fine. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, the baby is fine. It's not in distress. Your contractions are coming, but they're not really going. I said, well, I need to move around. And they said, you can't move around. I can't. They wouldn't let me walk. They wouldn't let me use my bouncing ball. So I was really in the bed, walking from the bed to the bathroom, because I was like, I'm not using a bedpan. No. So, and I wanted to shower. So that's all I was able to do in the hotel room. I mean, in hospital room. So he was like, well, let me check your cervix and see how far down you are, like how much more you've dilated or whatever. I was like, pass. So he's like, well, let's do a sonogram to measure this or whatever, see how the baby is. I said, fine. So they did a sonogram. They couldn't really get the angle they wanted, so they had to do a vaginal sonogram. I was like, okay, I was uncomfortable as hell, but fine. Next day now, which is Friday, he comes in. He's like, listen, I'm about to rotate out. Mind you, in this whole time I've been sitting, I met all the other OBGYNs. There's 4 of them. The old black guy was the only, not even old. He's not even old. He's probably like 56, 60, maybe 60, but like 56 or so, right? You know, black don't crack. So I can't really pen his age, but just by the way he was talking. So his miserable ass, he was the only one that I was put off by. There was a Spanish guy, a Spanish lady, and a white lady. Okay. So they were all cool. The rest of them, just the black guy, miserable fuck. So anyway, and none of them were invasive. I didn't get checked that whole time I was there. It was this black guy. He was the first one that was like, it's been a long time. We have to check you, see what's going on. So they now is like, look, we got to do an amniotic fluid because your water is still leaking, like gushing out. And the more water is gushing out, the less cushioning baby has. So I said, okay, fine, let's try to do the amniotic flush. The black doctor is the one doing this now. So then he come in and he come to do the amniotic infusion, and the motherfuckers don't have nothing in place. Nothing in place. The nurse is scrambling. Oh, I don't have the kit. Now he has his fingers in my flipping twat as they're looking for the things. And I'm like, this is hella uncomfortable. So he tries the first time and it doesn't take. I start bleeding. And he's like, okay, I can't do it. Let's try this again. And I was like, I'd rather you not. He's like, well, this time we can go through a different angle or whatever. So he goes to try it again, and I was just so uncomfortable. I said, no, I'm done. Like, I'm done. No more. Right? So I said, we'll have to figure this out. And they're like, okay, fine. So he stops on the second go round, but I'm like, y'all was so unprepared. Like, hell no. Nah, right? So, so now I start bleeding. And I'm like, is that my mucus plug? Is this my bloody shit? Like, what is going on? Because this whole time there was no other blood until you come with your miserable ass talking about you need to come check. And he was like, no, I didn't see anything. He's like, and you're not. He's like, no, it's not your mucus plug, and you've only dilated like 1.5 centimeters. I'm like, okay, yeah, because I've been sitting here, can't do anything to get into active labor. I just had a tear in my amniotic in my water. I just had a poke in my water bag. So that's basically what it equivalent to. And because y'all won't let me move, now I'm stuck. So now Saturday comes and the Spanish doctor is back in rotation. And I'm so in love because I like the Spanish doctor, the Spanish guy. And he's telling me my options. He's like, okay, the baby might start to come. I want to give you Pitocin because Dr. What was his freaking name? Miserable. Oh. Okay, let's see if one of his siblings will get him. Let's see what happens because he is up. So the miserable doctor left and the Spanish guy is in. The Spanish doctor is in rotation. He's like, I want to give you Pitocin to see if we can. Okay, they're not getting him. All right, y'all. I'm sorry. Y'all give me 30 seconds because I have to go grab the baby. Okay. The star of our show. Oh, he's so sleepy. Okay. So they're like, all right, we got to give you Pitocin to see if we can help speed up the contractions. But every... Oh. Okay. What's wrong? Oh, we may have to end it. What you gonna do? Okay. So he's like, we have to give you Pitocin to try and speed up your contractions so that... Really? Is this what you're gonna do? What's wrong? Okay. Okay. Saying he wants to give me Pitocin to try to speed up the contractions to see if I will dilate more because I'm only at 1.5. since the doctor checked me the first time, yes, the day before. So I said, okay, fine, we'll do the Pitocin. We started in the morning. So this was, he came in Saturday night. So Sunday morning, we started it. So we went through, and it was early, like 6 a.m. So they started the Pitocin, low dose. I started contracting more. Baby was fine. They checked me maybe 6 hours later, so in the afternoon, and I was at 3 centimeters. And I was like, all right, fine. Then they kept coming, the contractions kept coming, but they weren't hard. But baby he was fine, he was normal, but there was like some hiccups or gaps. So then they started letting me like sit up more, try to change positions, and they checked me again at maybe 4 p.m. or so, and I was still at 3 centimeters. Baby was fine, heart rate was good, everything was cool. We were progressing along. Then they didn't want me eating, so that whole time as well, I wasn't eating. So I ate like that night, but to prepare in case I went fast, I wasn't eating anything. So then they were like, well, you're still at 3 centimeters. Everything looks fine. I don't think you're going to have the baby soon. So go ahead and eat or whatever. That was Super Bowl Sunday, because now we're on the 13th. And yep, on the 13th, that Sunday. So at home, they were grilling, they were cooking, whatever. My husband was already planning on coming. But right when they said, okay, you can eat, they were like, oh, the food is done. I said, perfect. So they came, my husband and my kids came up to the hospital, and I ate. And then were we watching the game? We were watching the game like off and on. But we were doing some other stuff. And right at halftime, I wanted to watch it that year because of the performances with Dr. Dre and Eminem and Snoop and all of them coming through, whatever. Right at halftime, they came in to talk about the possibilities of having a C-section, just to make sure that everything was alight. That was not the first time they brought it up. The first time they wanted to come and talk about it. Then they came and was telling me about the baby's premature, because any baby before 36 weeks has to stay in the NICU and make sure they can do XYZ or whatever. So I said, okay, fine. And I told them what I wanted, to keep my placenta, and I didn't want anything for the baby, no eyes, ointment, no shots or any of that nature. I let them know he's not to be tested, he's not to be bathed, like don't do any of that. It was agreed upon. Cool. So they checked me again, and after that, so now we're at 7 or 8 or so, and baby's heart rate was starting to decel. Contractions were coming harder, but I was starting to decel. Baby was starting to have decels. So they checked me, and I was at like 4 centimeters. But for as hard as the contractions were, and the way how he was responding, it was uncertain whether or not he could progress without the water. Because remember, he doesn't have the cushion. So they weren't sure how he would be able to progress through active hard labor. So again, the possibility of C-sections came up, and I said, fine. The doctor, the Spanish guy, he was like, that's not really where he wants to go, but because they tried to give me the amniotic infusion and it didn't take, then that would be the next choice, because baby's getting crushed every time I contract, right? Because normally after your water break, you still have some of that cushion, but because I had been leaking now for 13 days, 12 days, right, from the 2nd to the 13th, a lot of it has been expelled. So I said, okay, cool, whatever. They're like, yeah, we don't think that would be, but we'll see how the night goes. So I eat, and they leave, and hubby, gets settled in for the night, tries to go ahead and close his eyes. I try to close my eyes, and they come in at like 10:30 or so, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and they're like, yeah, baby's heart rate is decelling a lot. We're going to have to take you in for a C-section. So I was like, oh, all right, let me process that. So because they had already brought the possibility, we already spoke about it, I reminded them, I want to keep the placenta, I want to do this, I want to do that. And at that time, the doctor, the Spanish guy, said, well, we have to make sure that the baby is crying, that the baby's okay before we can leave him, detached from, leave you open and leave him detached. Like if he's not crying, if there's something emergency that he has to do, I can't promise that we're not going to clip him and disconnect him or whatever. So I was like, okay, doc. He said, but if he cries and his score is good, then I'll give you a minute with him connected to the placenta. And I said, okay, fine. So they start to prep me. And at about 11:30 or so, I go down. The guy who was the anesthesiologist, he was cool. He explained a lot, and he was um, he was nice. Dealing with him as anesthesiologist, the one who has to not poke me in my spine and give me, because this whole time I've been without medication, so it was a little uncomfortable, and I was still having contractions. So even though they took me off the pitocin, that's the thing. They took me off the pitocin at a 6 when they came in and checked me again, and kept saying that he was having D cells and they wanted to get a different angle. So that stopped it, but my contractions were still coming. And then because I wasn't dilating like accordingly, they're like, yeah, we can't go. So he was cool. He explained everything to me. They let me choose my music. I chose Billy Carson's 432 meditation music that he has. It used to be a 24-hour thing. Then he cut it to 8 hours. But I had it saved, and I put that on during my C-section. So everyone, when they heard it, they're like, wow, this is so calming. This is so, I'm like, yes, I need everyone to be peaceable over my business. And I had my stones. They let me bring my crystals. So in the hospital, I had my crystals in there. I had my singing bowl in there. I had my stuff in there, and they let me bring it into the operating room. And I called on Archangel. Well, I called on my angels to protect me and to bring peace and to bring harmony over the entire room. The C-section went fine. There was no issues, no complications. My husband was there with me. That was the first C-section that I ever had, and it taught me a lot, because I mean, I can talk about it to people, but going through and experiencing it is completely different. So I am thankful that I had that experience. So going through now with the operation, baby's out. He cries. He scores 9 out of 10 on his ASVAR and the APGAR score. And they give him to hubby, and hubby brings him to me. And I was like, hey, remember, placenta is mine, and 1 minute attached, right? Let the cord go across or whatever. So the OBGYN says, yeah, that's cool. I'm reading the comment. So they gave him to hubby. Hubby brought him to me. He sounded like a cat, because at first when I heard him, I was like, whose cat is that? And I was like, oh, it's not a cat. You're in the hospital. That's your baby. That's your baby crying. And he was so pretty and handsome. He was beautiful. It was all in alignment. He was born on my husband's great grandmother's birthday. She is an ancestor that I have on my altar. His just so many connections, but him being born on that day, Valentine's Day, also in Aquarius. So check this. The day I got admitted to the hospital, Aquarius season, is my father's birthday. The day they wanted to initially induce me is my brother's birthday, Aquarius season. Then I have a sister who's an Aquarius. And all of them, I'd be like, y'all some ain't shit Aquariuses. So for him to be an Aquarius, and my husband said, the Aquarius that he loves the most was his great grandmother. So here he is, and he has so many traits of her, so many attributes of her. So this is going to be so exciting. Very excited to see how his chapter unfolds. But so I had a C-section, and while I'm open on the table, I'm shouting out these commands, because we're all peaceable, right? Not commands, but reminders is what we want to do. And they said, the OBGYN was like, yes, I promised her a minute on the placenta as long as he cried, so she can have that. But as far as keeping the placenta, we can't give it to you. And I'm like, what? I'm like, nigga, we went over this. We've been going over this. He was like, yeah, we have to test it because it's premature. I I was like, but it's not premature because I'm at 35 weeks. Like I was 35 weeks when he was born officially. Like it was only a day, but still. So he was like, well, yeah, technically it's not, but for the hospital, we still have to keep it for testing. He's like, well, I'll give you half of it. So here I am now. And we had this conversation after they took baby. So baby went up and I sent hubby with him. I was like, hubby, go with him. Make sure they don't give him nothing. Don't put nothing over his eyes. Don't give him no shots, no nothing. They want to give him antibiotics because my bag was ruptured for so long. So I allowed that one round of antibiotics. That was it. It was in his foot. Oh, but that was it. Everything else we denied, signed, wavered for. So now I'm sitting here open on the table and it's telling me I can't have my placenta because he got to take it to test it. I was like, nah, I need that. I need that. Like, we agreed to that. So he's like, well, I'll give you half. I said, okay, thanks. Like, how am I going to know whether or not it's the half? I said, can I have the half of the cord? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want you to have my cord. Like, don't play with me. I know what we're doing. Let's not play that game. So they cut it in half and wrapped it up in a container and put the red hazard. And according to the hospital policy, it was you have to have your own container and has to be off premises within an hour. But they wrapped it up and they didn't stress us taking it off. We did call my daughter and she came in the middle of the night and she did get it because this is in the early middle of the night. So this is happening. So she came and she grabbed it for us. You done with it? Or you want some snacks? So I told them, don't feed him, don't bathe him, none of that. After my medication wore off, I was downstairs for like 45 minutes. They had to monitor me. And then they were going to take me up to the mother's floor. And I said, nope, take me to my baby. Duh. So they took me upstairs and I nursed him. First latch, perfect. Like he already knew what it is that he was doing. I do know there's difficulty in that. I nursed all my children and I did have difficulty with some of them, but he latched, no issue. So first nursing in, he was fine. And then I went up to the mother's floor. He had to stay in NICU, but my husband stayed with him the whole time. I told my husband, don't even worry about it. So I went up to my room and they encouraged me to pump since he was down there. So I tried pumping and that colostrum was not coming. Okay. The pump was not pumping. I pumped like a teaspoonful, but they were like, keep it, suck it up in the syringe. We need it so we can feed it to him. Like he'll take it. It took a while for my milk to come in. I ordered, not my milk, but just to have a good flow. Because the first couple of days is not milk, but your baby still needs that. So please give it to your babies. Don't listen to people say that it's not your milk. That thick yellow stuff that's coming through, that's for the baby. It's colostrum or whatever. But the baby needs it. It's like their first round of antibiotics. Even if you only nurse for those couple of days, and then when your milk flows in, you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this no more. Even if you give your baby just those first couple days of that nutrients flowing from you, it will be so beneficial for all your children. That's if you can, right? Some can't latch, but you can pump. Do that too, right? So I tried pumping, it wasn't flowing. I ordered some mother's milk tea. I got some fenugreek. I already had that. I already had sea moss, and I started taking that, drinking that. Coconut water that helped to flow too. I was doing all that to help my milk come in. I had to use 2 rounds of donated breast milk. I didn't give him formula. I did go to the hospital, have the hospital give him the donated breast milk because even with my pumping, I wasn't pumping enough. And mind you, I'm early, have a C-section, different floor down. Now, mind you, I was getting up every 3 hours or so to go get him. I had the catheter. I had them take the catheter out like the next morning. So it was only in for 12 hours. Like, yeah. So I was moving. I was up and moving. Also in the NICU where he was, they had like his own suite and I could stay up there in the chair. So if my husband had to go home or whatever, I was there with him. But I made sure one of us was with him all the time to make sure that they wasn't with the BS. You done? If you done, we done. Okay. But yeah, that is the story. Like it was amazing. He was planned and wanted and loved before he was even planned and thought of and wanted. So I am grateful for the experience that he brought me through. So humbling on so many different levels. Um, yeah, he's done. Yeah, you're done. You're done. We're finna go. That you want to get down. Um, but I am grateful for my little one. And even though he's acting stank right now because he woke up prematurely. I don't know why he's up, but I am grateful for him along with all my other babies. But these children coming in this era, I know they say the COVID babies hit different, but literally they do. It's your whole generation. All the children coming in from like 2016, 2017. You're seeing it ramp up now because we're more heightened and aware. But those rainbow babies, like they know what they are on. They know what they are here for. They know what they want to do. They're setting their own trends. They're setting their own not trends, but they're trailblazing. Okay. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. The new earth that everyone is looking for, these are the ones that are going to be running it for us. Okay. Like we are here just to bring them in, to give them passage, to lay the groundwork, get the foundation going, but we're not going to reap all the bounties that we're hoping for to see. It's the children and the grandchildren and the great grandchildren. Okay. So if you have babies from 2016 up until now, please cherish them and love them and remind them who they are. Always keep that spark open and ablaze for them. They will love you for it. They're not going to forget. But if we capture it early in the beginning of their life and just keep that momentum going, it will make such a difference. The time is ending. This old world is ending. Okay, Revelations is playing out. It is, right? It's food shortages. It's wars everywhere. It's mother against daughter and father against son. It's the signs of the last days. But we want these things to end. We're ready for these last days to be done so that the new things can begin. It's always a cycle. There is no end. There is no end in anything ever, ever. Even things that you can't catch a glimpse of. Every time you remember it and you bring it forward, you are giving it life. Okay? Every single time. And the beautiful thing with technology and this internet, it's keeping things alive that would have been gone a long time ago. So that is that. We are done. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening to my story. Peace to everybody. I only read the comments here and there, but I appreciate you all. And I hope that it gave you some knowledge and insight into what you can do and what you can't do. You have rights in your state. So if you are looking to bring a child in through a hospital or any other means, then make sure that you know your rights and you're aware of your rights so that no one can strip you of that. Okay. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is demise. It is demise. Okay. So that is that. I love you all. Stay beautiful. Stay great. Shout out to all my C-section mamas. Listen, I was swollen for 2 weeks. It's like a bitch. But my scar, very minimal. So if you do end up having a C-section, if all other avenues are exhausted, just make sure you tell them, try to do minimal cuts. Like I think my cut literally was like this big. I was like, how did you fit a baby after that? But anyway, all right, I'm done. I love you all. We out. Are you going to say bye? Since you sick of it? You sick of it? You finna say bye? No? Okay, we ain't saying bye. All right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day.